We will tirelessly investigate and prosecute individuals who carry out hateful terror attacks in our community. We will hold them accountable, just as we are doing in this case. This plea agreement holds this defendant accountable to the maximum extent possible under the law. I ask the court to sentence the defendant to 5 life sentences, each sentence running consecutive to the other, plus 48 years on each attempted murder, consecutive to each count, totaling an additional 2,208 years. I ask the court to sentence the defendant to 3 years on count 3 as contemplated in the plea agreement. That's the bias-motivated felony offense. And on count 134, the misdemeanor level bias-motivated crime, for a term of 364 days, which is maximum under current Colorado law for a Class 1 misdemeanor. Both bias-motivated sentences can be run concurrent to the other sentences contemplated and as outlined here. Finally, Judge, we are asking that you keep restitution open for the maximum allowable time under the law as it currently exists. Obviously, you know that there's a lot of victims that have been impacted by this case. And so we are diligently collecting that information, and we'll submit a payout order to the court. And then obviously if defense objects, we can have a hearing on that as well. I just learned that one other person is here and would like to make a statement to the court prior to turning over to defense, if I can do that.
Yes.
So we would call up Drea Norman.
Good morning. What is it you wish to tell me?
Good morning, Your Honor, and thank you. My name is Drea Norman, and I am a survivor of the hate-filled attack at Club Q on November 19th. I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about what I was put through that night, as well as what I gained from Mr. Aldridge following his deliberate atrocity against my chosen family. I was honestly appalled when I sat down with the DA, who showed me the security footage as well as the body cam footage from the incident. As I sat with my precious friend Svetlana, we watched as Mr. Aldridge almost enthusiastically pulled up to the front door of the club, raided his rifle, and stormed the building, firing at anything that moved. My position relative to the entrance was separated only by 8 or 9 meters at the front of the bar, where I stood alongside a beautiful drag queen and one of the first victims, Kelly. When the shots went off, there wasn't a single person in the room who expected gunfire, but the smell that quickly engulfed the room and the accompanying screams of pure terror immediately begged to differ. I saw muzzle flashes and barely noticed a window to my right exploded before I dropped to the floor as fast as I could, thinking, holy fuck, this is actually happening. That's about as vulgar as I'll be. I apologize. My daze was quickly broken by an instinctual urge to survive and the possibility that the shooter would come back to finish people off. So I crawled on my arms and knees. I apologize. So I crawled on my arms and knees to make it to the kitchen, where I thought it would be the safest place to escape. Before entering the kitchen, I was met with the second victim that Mr. Aldridge claimed, Raymond. He laid face down at the entrance to the kitchen behind the bar. I called out to him in hopes of some sort of response, but I didn't get one. I checked vitals for a pulse, but couldn't find one. Finally, I grudgingly proceeded to the kitchen after calling for a response one last time and couldn't get one. There I grabbed a weapon, anything I could find, and hid in the kitchen's freezer until the shooting stopped. My feelings of self-preservation almost immediately left me, fearing the possibility of finding my partner at the time, Svetlana, how I found Raymond. I left the freezer, carefully stepping past Ray, and made my way further into the club, where I then found Mr. Aldridge being held down by Tom and Richard. Still with my first goal in mind, I proceeded to the patio, which had its glass door blown in, and found my partner shaken, bloodied, and in tears as she sat next to Mr. Aldridge's third victim, Derek. I could only tell that he was hit in the neck, but the look on his face told me everything. I hugged my partner and sat with her to check on Derek, but being a probationee, she asked me to leave, attempting to diminish the trouble I was already in. So I reluctantly agreed, but gave Derek a kiss goodbye on the cheek before I left. In the process, I heard Richard shouting that he needed help. The shooter was crawling away from the grasp that he had him in, and as I stood above him, my only thought was throw my foot down, stop him. And after I would imagine was 10 strikes, I stopped, feeling like that was more than enough. And I walked away. At the same time, that was when the police came in and they were looking for Mr. Aldridge, and I pointed, gesturing with my hand, and they proceeded to detain and arrest him. From that point on, I left, taking my girlfriend at the time's her car all the way back home. What I gained from that night was caution, as well as love from everyone around me and support from places I never thought I'd be. I want everyone here today to understand that this was deliberate. It almost looked excitable to the shooter. And as I left to go home and clean up all the blood on me, I knew that I would probably never go out again. And that's about all I had. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
And just for the record, Drea is Drea and then common spelling Norman. Also a survivor from inside the club.
All right. Anything else from the people?
No, Judge.
Mr. Archambault for the defense.
One moment, Your Honor. Just briefly. Mix Aldrich does not want to address the court themselves. He does want me to tell the court that they are deeply remorseful and they are deeply sorry for all the people that they killed, for the lives they impacted, for the injury, and frankly, for the great harm that they caused to so many people. They know that they can't do anything to make it better, but they do want everyone to know that they're sorry and they're remorseful. Mix Aldrich does ask the court to accept the plea agreement to sentence them to 5 life sentences in the 2,208 years. So we are asking the court to accept and sentence Mix Aldrich.
Thank you. Anderson Aldridge, I heard what your attorney just said. I'm required, however, by law to ask you if you would like to make a statement at this time before I impose sentence.
No, Your Honor.
All right. Anderson Aldridge, when you commit a hate crime, you are targeting a group of people for their simple existence. One's skin color, or sex, or gender, or sexual orientation
Yes.
is a mere product of chance, a byproduct of forces beyond one's control, completely unrelated to one's value and dignity as a human being. This country was founded on the idea that all persons are created equal,
Oh my God, yes.
the idea that God makes no mistakes. And our laws reflect this by making it clear that hate crimes are worse than other crimes. Like too many other people in our culture, you chose to find power that day behind the trigger of a gun. Your actions reflect the deepest malice of the human heart, and malice is almost always born of ignorance and fear. The power found behind the crosshairs of a rifle is ultimately impotent. True power is found in the legacy of those people who teach their children empathy. The people of the state of Colorado find their strength in protecting the powerless, in celebrating our differences, and in love, not hate. Empathy is the glue that holds society together. It is the lifeblood of our constitutional republic, and it is the source of my responsibility to sentence you. The sentence of this court I hereby sentence you to 5 consecutive life sentences in the Department of Corrections without the possibility of parole for the murders
Well, for some reason it closed
of
down on
Kelly
me.
Loving, Daniel Aston, Derek Rump, Ashley Paw, and Raymond Green Vance. I hereby sentence you to 46 consecutive 48-year sentences in the Department of Corrections with those associated mandatory periods of parole.
Good.
These sentences are consecutive to each other and to the murder counts. This is for the attempted murders of Talia Priester, Barrett Hudson, Channing Law, Edward Sanders, Lauren Berg, Charlene Slaw, Jericho Lovell, Felicia Collins, Tara Bush, Anthony Malberg, Thomas James, James Slaw, Joanne Law, Michaela Sanchez, Isaiah Aponte, Ashton Gamblin, John Carlos Del Val, Cassandra Fierro, Matthew Broderick, Rain Vasquez, Wyatt Kent, David McRae, Amber Brooks, Richard Fierro, Sean Shelby, John Arcediano, Ian Alder, Jeremiah Griffith, Jessica Fierro, Brittany Cornelius, Deanna Van Sickek, Joshua Thurman, Michael Anderson, Devin Dragt, Christiana Lovell, Brianna Winningham, Martin Rendelman, Michael Gary, Svetlana Heim, Delusional, Azaria Lacour, Bianca Perez, Felicia Juvera, Salahidin Rabea, Ramon Rodriguez, Andrea Norman. I also hereby sentence you to 3 years on the Class 5 felony bias-motivated crime and 364 days of the Class 1 misdemeanor bias-motivated crime. These sentences are to be served at the Department of Corrections and are running concurrently with count number 1. As required by law, the court is ordering the payment of restitution and imposing costs. The prosecution, understandably, is under a large logistical obligation here to determine restitution. However, I'm going to ask that their office comply with our standard 45-day protocol. If that amount of time is not sufficient, please file a status report with the court and I can make a good cause finding. The defense will have 21 days after any proposed restitution payout order to file any objections that might exist related to the restitution. Does either side have any questions for the court?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, everyone. The court is in recess.